welcome to the April 2023 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I hope everybody had a fantastic Easter and is enjoying this great spring weather we're having right now. And I hope everybody was successful out turkey hunting. There's actually not much time left. My 357 Magnum video got over 100,000 views in under 2 weeks, which is absolutely crazy for a channel as small as mine. Almost everyone loved that video, except for the 10 millimeter guys. But the problem is my average subscription rate only went up by about 2% during that time, meaning that only 2% of the over 100,000 new viewers that my channel had actually subscribed to my channel. So it wasn't successful in that regard. I also did a quick trip to Hawaii to do some bone fishing from shore and to get in a quick luau with Becca. I absolutely love hunting saltwater flats with a fly rod on foot. I just love that style of fishing. And I hooked a couple of really nice fish, and the weather in Hawaii was just perfect. I received a good quantity of mail this month and some really good questions. And luckily, none of them are from Houston. So let's get to April's mail. And our first letter is from Liam in West Virginia. Liam wrote, "Why are people obsessed with twist rates? Wouldn't it make sense to use a really fast twist rate so you can shoot any bullet you want?" I guess that's a logical question, Liam. Twist rates, though, are an important balancing act. You want a bullet fully stabilized for two reasons, basically. First, you want accuracy and precision. And an understabilized or overspun bullet will usually degrade precision and accuracy. Overspun bullets cause what Brian Litz refers to as dispersion. Basically, the effects of every tiny flaw in the bullet and inside the barrel are magnified as the twist rate gets faster. The second reason is for terminal effect. A hunting bullet must strike the target, tip first, and penetrate deep without yawing in order to achieve the desired expansion and straight line penetration through the animal to its vitals. So you can overspin and underspin a bullet. Optimal twist rates have more to do with the bullet's length than anything. So twist rates have been getting faster because people are just shooting longer bullets today. And our next letter is from Dave from California. Dave wrote, "You recently said that bonefish are the hardest fighting fish pound for pound. I think halibut deserve a shout out too. I caught a little 8-pound halibut off of Homer Spit, Alaska, and I was blown away at how hard it fought. It embarrassed me in front of everyone else on the cattle boat since I was the first to hook up." Well, I've caught 100-pound halibut before, and I don't think they fight that hard at all for their weight, personally. They're certainly not up to tuna standards. Once you work them up off the bottom, they're yours. You're mainly fighting that water pressure sitting on top of their big flat body. A small 8-pound halibut is hard to tell the difference from, a cod that steals your bait, in my opinion. You must have had a halibut just pumped up on fish steroids, Dave. And I wish I was there to give you some moral support. And I could have took the rod from you, to let your arms recover from that badass 8-pound halibut. And our next letter is from Daryl from Lindsborg, Kansas. Daryl wrote, "I have a question regarding head spacing, the 375 H&H. I just purchased a new Model 70 Safari Express in 375 H&H with plans to take it to Africa. I plan to hand load for it and have experience loading. Many other calibers up to and including 338 Winchester Magnum. The 338 Win Mag has a belt, but I headspace off the shoulder like other calibers. The 375 H&H has a belt, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to still try to headspace off the shoulder or not." That's a pretty common question with the 375 H&H. And it depends on the chamber that your rifle has. Some factory belted Magnum guns have chambers just so long that you'll experience case head separation after just 2 or 3 firings. And I have no use for guns like that because I reload, and so do you. If you don't headspace most belted Magnums off the shoulder, the brass just won't last very long, in my opinion. And those Lee Collet dies, won't even really help you with those guns. But every Model 70 that I've handled doesn't have that issue, and you can easily headspace off the shoulder. I basically set up my sizing die to bump the shoulder back about 2 thousandths on my fired brass. This improves accuracy, extends brass life, and allows reliable feeding and extraction in tough field conditions. But many dangerous game hunters that I know will only hunt with virgin brass. That's right, they'll only hunt with brand new brass. They want reliability, and since shots will be under 100 yards, extreme accuracy really isn't that important to them. They also might give away their leftover ammo after their hunt in Africa. So they use fired brass for practice only and hunt with only new virgin brass. So keep that in mind, because that type of logic is actually pretty sound in my opinion. And our next letter is from Eddie. Eddie didn't say where he was from. Eddie wrote, just a quick question. So the max overall length of the 7mm Rem Mag is 2.5 inches, but the trimming size is 2.490. So obviously, after sizing, does it mean it has to be trimmed down to 2.490 each time? The max overall length for the 7mm Remington Magnum is actually 3.29 inches, but I believe you're talking about brass length, not overall length in your letter. But yes, trim your 7mm Remington Magnum brass down to 2.490. It might take a couple of firings for your brass to get long enough to trim, depending on your chamber. But when it becomes time to trim, always do it. And our next question is from Jimmy from Anaheim, California. Jimmy wrote, I followed you for about 7 years on YouTube. I was surprised to see you fish in Oahu and stay in Waikiki because you hate tourist-ridden places. In your past videos, you stayed in more remote places. Is the fishing better on Oahu? Well, the bone fishing in particular is definitely better on Oahu. Oahu and Kauai are the only islands in the Hawaiian island chain that have real flats on them. Well, accessible flats, because Oahu and Kauai are geologically much older than the other islands that we have access to fishing. Islands like Maui and the Big Island are geologically new, so the coast is still mostly rock, and the sandy beaches that they do have drop quickly down into the ocean depths, so they're not flats. The more flats you have access to, the better the bone fishing will be, and Oahu definitely has the most access to flats for fishing. And our next question is from Rich from Western Colorado. Rich wrote, please share your insights on vision correction. As a hunter and marksman with aging eyes and astigmatism, I haven't figured out a really good solution for vision. What has worked well for yourself or others whom you know, trust, and respect? It's another great question. I can't really relate to your situation, Rich. I'm farsighted just enough to need, these 1.5x reading glasses to read anything up close. But it doesn't really affect my shooting much, and I'm able to adjust all my optics to compensate more for my vision problems. The eye is just such a complex organ, And there are usually multiple issues going on simultaneously with aging eyes. So the only way to get any kind of accurate answer is from a good optometrist. Most of the competitive shooters I used to compete with had custom prescription shooting glasses, and I highly recommend that you go that route as well. And our next question is from Mitch from Washington State. Mitch wrote, I have a hunt planned for May of 2024, and we are going to hunt for impala, blessbuck, warthog, blue wildebeest, and the spiral slam. I was thinking about taking my Model 700 and 7mm Rem Mag for the smaller game and my 416 Rem Mag for eland. What are your thoughts? Also, the 7mm shoots the 155 grain Federal Terminal Ascent pretty well. Is that too small of a bullet for plains game? Ammo with 170 grain bullets that are well constructed are almost impossible to find for the non-hand loader. Well, that 155 grain Federal Terminal Ascent bullet will be fine for just about all the plains game that you're going to encounter. The Terminal Ascent bullet looks to be a great bullet, and I think it's a good match for the speed of the 7mm too. It'll hold together good. I'd definitely bring that gun if you shoot it well. The 416 will easily take an eland, but most will say that it's pretty overkill for that. Shot placement is very important with eland because they'll just keep running all day long if you don't hit them right. They're definitely runners. If you can't shoot the 416 with just pinpoint accuracy, don't bring it. You need to be completely honest with yourself on a 416 for plains game. Since it sounds like you're hunting some type of package deal on a high fence game ranch, you should be able to get really close to the animals, and tracking really shouldn't be a huge problem. If you already have all the equipment you described and you're proficient with it, then use it. If not, dump that 416 and get a 338, a 9.3, or a 375. If I was on your hunt and it included all plains game, up to and including eland, I'd probably take my 35 Whalen and use that on everything. And our next question is from Mario from Quebec, Canada. Mario wrote, I would like a bolt-action rifle for bear hunting. What would you advise in .308 Winchester? A Tikka T3X, a Browning X-Bolt, a Winchester 70 controlled feed, or a Ruger M77? Well, all the guns you listed are fine hunting rifles, but I'd personally go for a controlled round feed rifle for bear hunting, for a purpose bear rifle, which narrows it down to the Model 70 and the Ruger Hawkeye. Of those two, and this is going to sound sacrilegious, I'd actually go with the Ruger because you're shooting in .308. You're going to want to shoot heavier bullets in your .308 because those black bears get pretty huge in Quebec. And the Ruger has an awesome 1 in 10 twist rate that's going to be a better fit for those bigger bullets, in my opinion. And our next letter is from Steve in Texas. Steve wrote, I've written to you several times and you helped me with load development about 3 years ago. You answered one of my questions on Hunt Camp Mail, which was a great surprise. You don't have to answer this one on Hunt Camp Mail because it isn't a fishing or hunting related question, and it's very weird. Okay. I love going to your channel, hitting the videos tab, and scrolling through your videos just to admire your video thumbnails. You have the most interesting and original video thumbnails on YouTube. My question is, what inspires you to create your thumbnails? Something no one has ever asked me before. But, Steve, a letter doesn't have to be hunting or fishing related to be on Hunt Camp Mail. I've answered questions ranging from politics to raising children, religion, COVID, relationships, growing old, coping with loss, and probably everything else in between. There's more to life than fishing rods and hunting rifles, and Hunt Camp Mail is a great place for me to connect with my viewers on a more personal level. So I think your question is relevant. On some of my videos, I actually put more effort into the thumbnails than I do into the video itself. Not only do I want my thumbnails to catch your attention, I want them to tell part of the story, to let you know what you're in for before you click on it. And I think that's my inspiration with my thumbnails. On my Hunt Camp Mail thumbnails, though, I just have random fun with those and do whatever. But I also want to provide you with the best of my efforts with my available time and resources to do these videos. And a good thumbnail is a sign of my attention to detail, I feel. Most big YouTube channels have a dedicated staff that does the videography, the editing, and the art. And I'm a solo act, so I don't have that. But I take pride in the effort that I put into most of my thumbnails, and I thank you for noticing that. And our next letter is from Philip in Ohio. Philip wrote, I started out bass fishing, then deer hunting, then caught the waterfowl bug, then started upland hunting last year. Now I find myself with a great deal of gear that is very unorganized and clutters our spare room. You might be the only guy that has more crap than me. How do you organize it all? Well, I definitely have a lot of crap. Your best friend is big plastic storage bins. Organize your gear into big plastic storage bins and label the bins so you know where to look when you want something. Let me show you my setup. And this is my personal little storage shed in my backyard. Let's see what's in it. And this is where I keep all my hunting and fishing stuff, and of course some off-road stuff up there. And you can see here I have everything organized. All the different types of chairs I use, everything from turkey hunting to sitting in a duck blind. And that's where I store everything. Our next letter is from Sean in New Jersey. Sean wrote, the Colt Python is the best fitting revolver ever made in .357 Magnum. Anyone who's ever handled a Smith & Wesson, Ruger, or Taurus will instantly start saving for a Python after they shoot one. I'm surprised you didn't have a Python in your review. Well, that's a pretty bold statement there, Sean. And to tell you the truth, it's really hard to take comments like that seriously because gun fit is going to be really different between each individual. And a one-size-fits-all gun just doesn't exist. Gun fit is a personal thing. And you can't impose what fits you on others. It doesn't work like that. Fit is the most important attribute of accuracy, and you should always try several guns before deciding what fits you the best. Honestly, the Smith & Wesson L-frame, that grip profile on the L-frame, fits me the best out of all of the revolvers in existence or that I've ever used. And Korth, the company Korth even uses that same L-frame grip profile on their guns. But I know people that need other types of grip profiles to shoot right. And the importance of gun fit goes for revolvers, pistols, rifles, and shotguns. People tell me all the time that they're going to buy a new Beretta A400 just like mine, but I always tell them to try the Benellis and Brownings before they buy the Beretta because, they might fit you better. Blind of brand loyalty is a sure sign of an inexperienced shooter, in my opinion. Fit always comes first, followed by things like reliability, control ergonomics, precision, size and weight, and appearance. Those things come after gun fit. And our next letter is from Trent in Canberra, Australia. Trent wrote, in Australia, we have the Sambar deer, which is comparable to an elk in size, although just a little smaller. I was thinking 150, 160, and 162 grain projectiles would be ideal for my 7mm 08, but I'd like to hear your opinion. Well, thank you for the letter, Trent, from Australia. But everything will depend on your barrel twist rate and the magazine and chamber limitations of your rifle. And if you're going to be using monolithic bullets, longer bullets need faster twist rates, and it's also going to need more room in the magazine. In general, a standard 1 in 10 twist rate barrel will shoot all bullets at 7mm 08 up to about 140 grains, and most lead core bullets up to about 150 grains. A 1 in 9 twist barrel was usually good for bullets up to about 168 grains, and that 1 in 8 twist will stabilize all bullets heavier than that. So for the bullets that you listed in your letter, I'd want at least a 1 in 9 twist barrel. The 150 and 160 grain bullets out of a 7mm 08 are deadly on elk here in the USA, so I see no reason why they wouldn't be the perfect bullet for sandbar deer as well, so I'd use them. And our next letter is from Wyatt in Tennessee. Wyatt wrote, I watched your hunt camp mail where you spoke about most people commenting on forums being full of BS. I bet all the people you use your special red button for have thousands of people listening to their bad advice. The red button. I was tricked into believing a guy on a bow hunting forum who turned out not to be a hunter. Have you ever fell for someone's BS on the internet? Oh boy. Well, as an agnostic libertarian, you'd think that I'd be immune to bullshit. Unfortunately, there's so many bullshitters out there right now that even the great dog of the desert has fallen victim to their antics before. The worst for me ever was a person who contacted me claiming to be the grandson of a famous figure in the gun and hunting world. He told me that some of the information about his grandfather that I had in one of my videos was wrong. And after 2 weeks of contact with this guy, I found him so genuine and knowledgeable about the historical figure that he made me a believer. And out of respect for his family, I was going to take down that video that I posted and add his commentary and upload the video again. But he screwed up and went a little bit too far. He spoke about his combat experience and PTSD in the war, and the narrative just didn't fit the timeline. There was something about what he told me that just made my bullshit sensors in the back of my head go off. So the historical figures family runs a website/blog, and I contacted the family through their website, and I explained my situation to them. And not only did they email me back, they personally called me back on my cell phone. The guy I'd been communicating with was a total fraud and was actually impersonating a real family member. The family wanted his contact information and correspondence for legal purposes, which I gladly provided for him. So I almost provided you with historical content that was complete bullshit made up by some crazy guy out there. And that's an embarrassing story of just how gullible anyone could be when it comes to the internet. And thank God I had enough sense to contact the family before I acted at all on that information. And I feel like a dope for even telling you guys about that story. And you have to excuse me here. My voice is kind of going out. It seems like after I had COVID about a year and a half ago, ever since then, I can't get halfway through a hunt camp meal anymore without sounding like Peter Brady going through puberty. So you're going to have to bear with me on that. You know, ironically enough, I even lost my singing voice. I used to drive around for work just wailing out country songs in my truck, and I just can't do it anymore. Our next letter is from Miguel from Prescott, Arizona. Miguel wrote, Desert Doggy, I subscribed to your channel after watching your Killing Power video and binge watched all weekend. Your jokes about the 270 bots cracked me up. Another YouTube channel I watch complained about 270 fans going crazy every time they did a video on a hunting cartridge. I didn't even know this trend existed. Thank you for making great videos. Well, thank you for subscribing to my channel, Miguel. And I hope you had a relaxing weekend binge watching all of my content. But these people, the 270 bots you talk about, they're people that suffer from a condition known as proselytism. You know, they have an urge that they have little control over to spread the belief that their way is superior to everybody else's. This is a common condition among religious and political fanatics, but it's not limited to just that. You see it in the firearm world. You know, they usually watch content that satisfies their confirmation bias over and over. And when they're out of material to watch, they actively seek content that actually violates their beliefs so they can argue that others are wrong. You know, people that suffer from proselytism are usually pretty easy to spot. You know, they might love Coca-Cola, so they seek out Pepsi lovers to tell them that they're wrong. You know, they're on every Ford forum arguing that Chevy is better. And you'll find that they'll find every 30-06 video so they can tell you that the 270 is better. And our next letter is from Peter in Mozambique. Peter wrote, I'm a professional hunter in Mozambique and was happy to see your Swift A-frame bullet presentation. We most often hunt bulls in large herds, and the Swift A-frame is our favorite bullet in Mozambique. With a broadside shot, the A-frame always ends up just under the skin on the opposite side. I am now heading out for another season of hunting, and I instructed my clients to bring A-frames if they can get them. I hope others see your presentation and learn. Well, thank you for the kind letter, Peter, and I wish you and your clients a successful and safe hunting season this year. And this is my first letter from the beautiful country of Mozambique. Thank you. And our next letter is from Doug in Oregon. Doug wrote, I watched some long-range competitions on YouTube and noticed that the winners weren't using flat-shooting Magnum-type cartridges. Some of the cartridges seem puny for 1,000-yard shooting. Why wouldn't they use something like a big Weatherby round? I guess that seems like a logical question, but in long-range target shooting, bullet drop doesn't really matter because they're shooting targets at known distances. Wind is what matters in long-distance target shooting, and high BC bullets are used to combat that. Since bullet drop doesn't really matter when you're hunting at known distances, the recoil of a Magnum isn't really necessary or desirable when you're shooting at 1,000 yards. As a matter of fact, excessive recoil reduces accuracy potential. Hunters often want flat shooting cartridges because we want to hunt within the maximum point blank range without dialing a scope or doing elevation holds. Also, many modern hunting bullets like bonded bullets and monolithic bullets need velocity to perform properly, and flat shooting rounds extend the capabilities of those bullets. And lastly, velocity raises the kinetic energy of a round, which most hunters welcome, within reason. But even hunters don't always need a big, heavy, flat shooting Magnum type Weatherby cartridge for hunting either. And they also weigh the benefits of less recoil and muzzle blast and maybe a lighter rifle to using cartridges like that. So I would say it's not just target shooters. Most actual hunters that hunt at ethical hunting distances also kind of reject those Magnum cartridges. And our next letter is from Ingvar in Iceland. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Ingvar. Ingvar wrote, "You mentioned the other day in my reply on your YouTube channel that you would like to fish for Arctic char in Iceland. Well, as a matter of fact, I work in the largest fishing and hunting store in Iceland. I would happily assist you in pointing you in the right direction for outfitter and selecting the right flies for the task. Here in Iceland, we really have great Arctic char and gigantic brown trout and nice Atlantic salmon, of course. Personally, I live for fishing and hunting. The spring fishing has started really well with some big sea trouts." Well, thank you very much for the letter from Iceland, Ingvar. And here's a couple pictures that Ingvar sent me of some fishing action in Iceland. Man, that brownie was absolutely gorgeous. Iceland is definitely on my list of destinations, but before I plan a trip to your beautiful country, I'll definitely be contacting you first. And our next letter is from Vincent in Santa Barbara, California. Vincent wrote, "Your analysis of mass shootings was absolutely spot on, but I feel you left out the fact that video games are making children violent these days. What are your thoughts on video games causing violence in our young people?" There was a lot of comments to this extent also in the comment section of that video, so I'll address that in Hunt Camp Mail. I just don't really see the video game connection like you do. Almost every boomer and Gen X boy out there grew up running around with all the neighbor kids playing Army and Cowboys and Indians every day. We were pointing toy guns at each other every day, which isn't even allowed today. When I was young, we would set up elaborate forts and get in epic battles with our toy guns. And sometimes we even use real BB guns. The boomers and Gen Xers watched the most violent cartoons ever created. And we did horrible experiments, with as many innocent insects as we could find. We idolized Rambo and guys like Dirty Harry, embraced heavy metal, and were exposed to real guns at a very early age. Yet boomers and Gen Xers didn't become mass shooters. Also consider this. Children in countries without mass shootings are playing the same video games that American kids are playing. So I don't think video games are the cause or really even a contributing factor. Our current culture that embraces mental illness, indoctrinates everybody into victimhood, thrives on attention, and has no moral boundaries is the cause, in my opinion. And I think it's going to get even worse. And our next letter is from a channel favorite, Hagen in Germany. Hagen asks, "Is the new 8.6 Blackout, this month's Hype Beast cartridge, ethical for any type of big game, specifically talking about the subsonic loads? Energy numbers seem anemic, not nearly enough to meet minimum requirements in Germany. But Q's totally impartial gel testing and marketing shows sufficient penetration and expansion, along with a super high twist rate. Is there more to this?" It's a great question as usual. The 8.6 Blackout might be the biggest gimmick cartridge we've ever seen. It delivers about the same energy as a 30-30 does in maxed out lighter weights and is extremely anemic in the heavier subsonic weights. And you can make gel tests be whatever the hell you want them to be. It's no different than massaging statistics, especially when uh, the composition of the gel isn't certified, and it's being shot at an unknown distance. So, but from a hunting perspective, the 8.6 Blackout makes no sense at all to me. I mean, it makes no sense to shoot such a weak round in the AR-308 platform. Just get an upper chambered in 308, 260, or 6.5 Creedmoor. The 8.6 utility as a hunting cartridge is pretty much all hype to me. And those fucking mall ninjas at Q went out and shot a buffalo with it in Africa and proclaimed that it's a great round for buffalo. So you could put unethical ownership on the list of reasons to stay away from that crap. You could kill an elephant with a .22 Magnum if you try hard enough. So shame on them, and shame on the outfitters that let these unethical Americans come over and do that to their wildlife. I just don't agree with that. But all this hype aside, I do think the 8.6 has kind of a small niche use. If you envision yourself as a stealthy uber ninja special ops guy that needs to sneak around fighting zombies silently, I think the 8.6 might be a better option than the 300 Blackout. Also, if you hunt by sitting in a tree stand or in a blind over bait, a short-barreled, low-recoil, suppressed 8.6 might be ideal for that. I don't know. But especially for you guys that live back east that might be shooting on really tiny plots of land in a more developed area, and you want a quiet cartridge that doesn't carry energy very far, the 8.6 Blackout might be something you might want to try. But I personally have no use for the 8.6 Blackout, and I doubt if most of the viewers of this channel ever will. Our next question is from Bill from Georgia. Bill wrote, I've seen in several of your videos, and most recently in your Swift A-frame video, that you desire a bullet to travel in a straight line through an animal. Why is this desirable? It would seem like a bullet that tumbles all over the place, like the original 5.56 NATO round, would do more damage. Well, Bill, bullet stability and straight tracking are very important attributes of a hunting bullet. When you aim at a spot on an animal, you're drawing an invisible line through that animal where your bullet strikes vital organs. If your bullet veers off this path, you might not hit the vitals, and this is especially critical for quartering shots. A tumbling or yawing bullet also lacks the penetration that a stable bullet will provide. That original M193 round was famous for wounding people as it fragmented and yawed. But hunting isn't about wounded. It's about clean one-shot kills, and you want a predictable, stable bullet for that. And we're down to our last question for the month. Our last question is from Stuart from Michigan. Stuart wrote, I just saw a video where Ian McCollum from Forgotten Weapons has a piece of brass casing permanently stuck in his chest from a blown case. As a former instructor, have you ever seen guns explode? Ooh. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've seen numerous firearms explode in my lifetime. We call them kabooms. I was an instructor, a part-time range master, and a competitor in everything from CMP to 3-gun to USPCA. And unfortunately, I've seen too many guns go kaboom. And probably 75% of those guns that I've seen go kaboom were pistols shooting hand loads. The other guns were mostly AR-15s shooting hand loads. People who load pistol and 223 loads typically load huge batches of ammo on some type of progressive press. They shoot large volumes, so they load in very large volumes. The problem with large batches on a progressive press is that much of the powder charging process isn't properly supervised. You're basically trusting your powder dispenser to do the right thing each and every time. If your powder measure clogs for any reason, you might get very little powder in the case, which might cause a squib. Or your powder measure might overcharge a case and go over pressure. And this is probably why most kabooms I've seen happen with hand loads for pistols and AR-15s. I've also seen an old Mauser 1916, I think it was a 1916 Spanish Mauser, blow up with factory ammo. So you have to be really careful with a lot of vintage military firearms as well. Most hunters, and precision shooters for that matter, are very meticulous when they load ammo. So they almost never have catastrophic failures. The only thing that worries me is all these new reloaders out there who troll the internet trying to copy other people's load data. And that can be very dangerous and is the main reason that I don't give out load data. Well, that wraps up another episode of Hunt Camp Mail. Here's some memes for the month of April. As a sacrifice to the YouTube algorithm, I'm going to upload a couple of shorts next month. And bear with me on these. I really hate doing these shorts, and I hate them just as much as you do. But I'll do my best to make them informative and interesting so you watch them anyways. You could follow me by hitting my Insta at Desert Dog Hunting. You can also send me questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. Well, all good things must come to an end, and unfortunately, this episode of Hunt Camp Mail has run its course. So thank you for watching, and as always, good hunting.